Robert Mbui, Kadhiani.
Stephen Mule, Matungulu.
Didoraso Saku.
Abdishurie, Balambala.
Mishimboko Likoni.
Rehab Mukami, Nyeri.
Kitonga Murugara, Tharaka.
Thank you, Honorable Murkomen. You will, of course, be asked questions to answer them on oath. We have the holy books there. We have the Bible. We have the Hindu holy book and the Quran. Depending on your faith, which one do you swear by? The Holy Bible. Take it in your right hand and recite the oath.
I, Onesimus Kipchumba Murkomen, do swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee of the matter under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
You are suffering from diminishing returns. You may sign the oath. Honorable Murkomen, you are one of the few who have got the luck to be vetted twice within 2 years. This is the same committee that vetted you some about 18 months ago. Before we embark on the business, hand over your certificates through the sergeant to the clerk to check against what we have. You've also been a colleague of all these members in Parliament for the last 2 terms. In fact, 2.5 terms, or 2 terms and some fraction. So these are your colleagues. I have directed them in cases where we have met former colleagues like Wandai, like Badi, to ask questions without fear or favor, with dignity and respect to each other. And we want precise and concise answers to punguze story mingi. And I've also requested the members that avoid unnecessary preambles to your questions. You just ask your questions so that they can be responded to. So to start in earnest, Honorable Murkomen, give us a short, no more than 5-minute opening statement telling us your name, your educational background, your work experience, your key competences that make you suitable for the appointment to which you have been nominated as Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for this opportunity. First, let me start by appreciating His Excellency the President for nominating me for a second time to serve this Republic. And should I be approved by this House, I will do it with dignity and vigor. Mr. Speaker, I am born and brought up in the eastern slopes of Cherangani Hills, a place called Embobut, where I went to school, and thereafter went both to St. Joseph's High School, Kitale, and St. Patrick's High School, Iten. Both schools are sports giants. As a matter of fact, St. Joseph's Kitale did exceptionally well this year in the football matches, but St. Patrick's High School has always been known to be the athletics powerhouse. I brushed shoulders with world champions and gold medalists, some of whom were my classmates, but I didn't run. Instead, I was a footballer, Mr. Speaker, and I did fairly well based on the standards then in the district. Mr. Speaker, thereafter I joined the University of Nairobi to study law at the University of Nairobi School of Law, and graduated in 2004. Thereafter, I was awarded a scholarship to study for a postgraduate degree in law at the University of Pretoria, where I did a master's degree in trade and investment law in Africa. And thereafter, I also went to the American University Washington College of Law, where I did another degree, a master's degree in international law. Mr. Speaker, I was in between. Before the master's program, I did my privilege and was admitted to, I actually was awarded a diploma in law and thereafter admitted to the bar. Mr. Speaker, upon return from the United States in 2007, I was employed to teach at the Catholic University of Nairobi, where I am very proud of the first cohort of my students in my time, one of whom is the president of the Law Society of Kenya. Thereafter, Mr. Speaker, I joined Moi University as also, I taught in Moi University until the time I resigned in 2012 to join politics. In between, I was an adjunct lecturer at the University of Nairobi, Kenyatta University, and a few other colleges and institutions. And Honorable Junaid Mohammed was a beneficiary of that knowledge, Mr. Speaker, in the legal profession. Mr. Speaker, other than that, I need to say that the most relevant part of this experience in the university and college, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that throughout my tenure from high school to the university, I was a student leader. As a matter of fact, at the University of Nairobi, I was the first student to be elected to the president of the Law Society in my second year. And Mr. Speaker, I also served as chair for SONU for a short period of time as we reconstituted SONU. And Mr. Speaker, I also was the CU chair, not just for the University of Nairobi, but all the CUs in the country. I am a product of student movement. I have been brought up, mentored, both in Christian leadership circles and also in the political movement of students.
When you say CU means Christian Union. Christian
Union, yes.
Someone can think it's Cafeteria Union.
It's not CCU at the University of Nairobi. It's actually, Mr. Speaker, the Christian Union, where Mr. Speaker was the president of the Fellowship of Christian Unions leadership across the country. Mr. Speaker, beyond that, I need to say that I also was a board member of the Youth Agenda, where our focus was to make sure that we mainstream youth issues. Mr. Speaker, I have worked with many civil society, both as a consultant, but also as a volunteer in the board. I do a lot of sports-related issues. Mr. Speaker, I was the captain of Bunge FC. And I see my members here, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Kikaria was a fantastic midfielder, a bit aggressive sometimes, but Mr. Speaker, I chaired I was the captain, and we did exceptionally well during my tenure, and I scored so many goals in different countries in East Africa. I say this, Mr. Speaker, because of the relevance of this sector of creative economy, youth, and sports. And Mr. Speaker, I'm a passionate sports fan, Mr. Speaker, and I believe that my nomination shall contribute to making the issues of the youth, Mr. Speaker, successful. I need to conclude by saying that I was elected in 2013 as a very young leader, not too young, but at least within the bracket of the youth. I was 32 years old. I came to the Senate, Mr. Speaker, and served immediately, nominated to serve in Pan-African Parliament, became the chair of Devolution Committee, graduated quickly to become the deputy majority leader. By second term, Mr. Speaker, I was the majority leader in the Senate. And Mr. Speaker, in my third term, in all these situations, the people of Elgeyo Marakwet County elected me 3 times by a minimum of 75% of the votes. As a matter of fact, the last term, I was elected by 90% of the votes. Mr. Speaker, in all these processes of leadership, I got an opportunity to serve as a cabinet secretary for roads and transport, a position I held for until the 11th of November, 11th of July, when the president dissolved the cabinet. Mr. Speaker.
He didn't dissolve, he dismissed.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Yes. Until then, I served in that capacity, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Murkomen. Welcome. I'll now invite the Deputy Speaker to be the first to ask you a question.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen, my questions will just be two-way, where you're going and where you had come from, because we will judge your competence as a Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports based on your performance in your previous position of Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport. So I'd like us to tell us what you found when you went to the Ministry of Roads and Transport, and then what were your key achievements, and what is your legacy, so to speak, so that if we are to assess what Murkomen did during that time, we can be able to judge you by that. And then secondly, I'd like you to now tell us what is your vision when you go to the Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports docket. What's your vision of it? What are the challenges you have? Because you've been listening out, you've been in cabinet, you know what the challenges are, and you can make explanation on that. And as you know, I've been very vocal about that particular ministry. Thank you.
Proceed to answer.
Thank you, Mr.
And we expect
Speaker.
concise and precise responses.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I start by saying that my greatest success in the Ministry of Roads and Transport is leadership. My first responsibility was to be a leader, to put together a team that works together, to make sure that the ministry and the state agencies are working together seamlessly, Mr. Speaker. Some of the agencies that I found dysfunctional, especially Kenya Airports Authority, with too many of its senior staff acting. I made sure that, Mr. Speaker, we fixed that problem, because that problem was the cause of the other systemic problem within the institution itself. Mr. Speaker, I operated and worked with the managing directors, director generals, the PSS as a team, and at no time, Mr. Speaker, did you hear any squabbles in the ministry. Number two, the second success for me is to be able to lead for the 2 years with integrity and honor, without, Mr. Speaker, bringing my office into any disrepute. And, Mr. Speaker, for the 2 years, no accusation was leveled against me, Mr. Speaker, of any kind on matters of integrity. I carried myself with honor. I abhorred acts of corruption. I managed to lead and remove some of our staff, Mr. Speaker, in some of the agencies, including Kenya Rural Roads Authority, that had become Mr. Speaker, difficult for my predecessor to remove them because of acts of corruption. And, Mr. Speaker, in terms of delivery, Mr. Speaker, despite the difficult situation we found ourselves with pending bills, we were able to work together as a team with all the roads agencies to deliver about 1,000 kilometers of tarmac roads, both new roads and, Mr. Speaker, the ones that were being reconstructed. All of these roads are in small bits and pieces. You'll find one like Thika Magumu in Kiambu, or the road from Mtwapa to Kilifi, or the road from Kwanjumbu, Mariakani, or Masera Sori in Homa Bay, or the towns of Embu, Kericho, Bungoma, and other towns in the country. Cumulatively, Mr. Speaker, we did about 1,000 kilometers of roads, despite the difficulties we had with the budget. Mr. Speaker, on the part of development funds, I reorganized, Mr. Speaker, and pushed for the contracts that had been delayed for construction of the roads from Isiolo to Wajir to Mandera. And now, Mr. Speaker, all the contracts have been awarded under the African Development Bank and World Bank funding projects, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also led the process of ensuring that, Mr. Speaker, we get funds for our roads. Remember, when I came here, we had a huge pending bill, and it was very difficult for us to solve that issue. His Excellency the President gave me the opportunity to travel to China to work with our development partners, and through my efforts, Mr. Speaker, and collective efforts of the team in government, I managed to raise 37 billion shillings from the China Development Bank to support about 15 roads that, Mr. Speaker, gladly, unfortunately, I didn't live to see its completion, but they are commencing, Mr. Speaker, from the month of August. Mr. Speaker, beside that, I also pushed for the resources to construct the intelligent traffic system. I promised when I came for vetting here. Now the intelligent traffic system has been advertised. 221 junctions are going to be fixed in the Nairobi city, Mr. Speaker, for that technology. I led the process also of PPPs. For the road from Mombasa to Nairobi, the American government, American investor, Mr. Speaker, has made a proposal, and that proposal is ongoing because we have facilitated them. Mr. Speaker, we had a problem with the Rironi Mau Summit, one of the most popular cases. There was an existing contract that I took the a step of courage, Mr. Speaker, to mutually terminate. And Mr. Speaker, we should be able, as the President promised, also to advertise after September when the mutual termination period is over, so that we get a contractor by January next year. Mr. Speaker, in the road sector also, I'd like to say that, Mr. Speaker, we have done a commendable job to raise resources. My last act in that office, Mr. Speaker, was to make sure that we get resources for maintaining our roads. When I came to Parliament several times, because these questions were asked, I appraised the country that we have what we call orphaned roads. And these roads are, especially in Kenya, rural roads, and they needed significant resources. Our demand per year for maintaining the roads is 150 billion, Mr. Speaker, yet we only raised 84 billion. This year, I took the significant step, did the public participation, and eventually we were able to increase the road maintenance levy by 7 shillings, working together with the petroleum sector to make sure that that increase did not make the cost of petroleum higher than it is. If it is something significant I'm leaving back in this ministry for the benefit of the honorable members who are here, we shall be having now constituency roads management having at least 100 million shillings in every constituency, up from 62 million in the last financial year, and we should be able to fix the problems that we have in our roads. That needed leadership, needed boldness, Mr. Speaker, to make that significant contribution. Mr. Speaker, it wasn't just the road sector that I superintended upon. There was also the transport sector. We did a lot in the port. Mr. Speaker, we were able to increase the efficiency of the port by 12%. We handled 1.6 million TEUs of cargo, up from 1.4. And this year, Mr. Speaker, we are going to handle 2 million TEUs. In also that sector, Mr. Speaker, we have increased investment, especially in Lake Victoria. Now the oil transport that I saw Honorable Wandai speaking about, now fuel is being transported across Lake Victoria. You don't need to burden the roads across to Uganda. Mr. Speaker, we are also building piers in Kisumu and also getting a ferry from Fangano Island. Some of those investments, Mr. Speaker, were based on the things we did. In the Lapsset corridor, for the first time, the Lamu port was able to handle significant cargo, 60 million metric tons of fertilizer destined towards Ethiopia, based on our diplomatic work within the Lapsset corridor. Now Lapsset corridor is functioning. The road from Lamu to Ijara, Mr. Speaker, which was a Maram road, we made sure that we fixed that problem. Now a tarmac road is being constructed, it's on the way. We have up to February next year to make sure that that tarmac road is delivered to Ijara, and the road from Ijara to Isiolo is also ongoing, Mr. Speaker. I look forward within next year that the Lapsset corridor will be completed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also did some work at the airport. You remember that when I arrived, the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport was a place of shame. All the airports do not have a maintenance policy. Mr. Speaker, after fixing the human resource, we made sure also we fixes the maintenance policy. Now we've been able to fix Jomo Kenyatta International Airport drainage system. We've also been dealt with the roofing, and Mr. Speaker, there is a progress in that direction. We've also fixed, Mr. Speaker, many of the other airports. There was a lighting problem in Eldoret. Wilson Airport, for many of us who are here who've used the Wilson Airport, you know that it's full of potholes and bumps, Mr. Speaker. Now we have awarded the contract to make sure that the aprons and the runway is redone afresh, because Wilson Airport is among the busiest airports in the continent, Mr. Speaker. Even as we did that, we completed also contracts that were pending for our airstrips in Anyuki, airstrip in Nakuru now are ongoing. We finished the Matulo airstrip, Mr. Speaker. We opened new routes for airlines to go to Kabundo in Homa Bay. We did in Migori Migori, Mr. Speaker. We did also new route to Kakamega. Mr. Speaker, now our airspace is booming. I opened doors, Mr. Speaker, for new airlines. We have Fly Dubai now flying to Mombasa. Air Indigo is now flying directly from India to Nairobi. And one of my last also responsibility was to grant Etihad a flight to come back to Nairobi. All this is done balancing, Mr. Speaker, with the interests of the Kenya, Mr. Speaker, Kenya Airways. Even that, Mr. Speaker, is just a tip of the things we have succeeded to do. Let me just say the last one, Mr. Speaker, is the. You know, I left the minister abruptly, so this is an opportunity to share. And I just in 2 more minutes, Mr. Speaker, is to say that in the railway sector, we've done a very good job to revamp the commuter rail system in the city of Nairobi, increasing the 10 stations in the city. We significantly pushed the Kumi program of the World Bank, which will give us 60 billion shillings to revamp the commuter rail system in the city. And Mr. Speaker, that will also lead to increasing the stations and therefore significantly reduce climate impact in the city and pollution, because we will be using mass transit of the railway. Mr. Speaker, we have done so also by connecting Mombasa to Miritini itself, and we are doing a construction of Riruta, Mr. Speaker, all the way to Ngong and hopefully then to Rongai, so that then we can significantly move our people using commuter rail. I was in the process of getting funding, working together with private sector and Ugandan government to make sure that we extend the railway from Naivasha to Kampala. I believe that my successor, the person who comes after me, my successor, Mr. Speaker, will continue from where we left insofar as that is concerned. There are so many other things we've done in the transport sector, in the Namata. All these will be now factors of history, and we shall have the time to be able to share. So I just want to say this, Mr. Speaker, that even as we accuse the government, and there is a general accusation across board that we've not done the communication, unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, no matter how much we try to publicize these great things we have done, it is trounced by criticism and predetermined programming, Mr. Speaker, to label certain people as a failure. I have worked passionately, committed to deliver my work, working sometimes up to midnight, Mr. Speaker, and this is a job I look back and say the last 2 years have been exciting for me, and I look forward to also taking the same energy and vigor to the next ministry. Mr. Speaker, the vision I have for the young people of this republic, there are many people who have asked themselves that, why Murkomen? Why is he being put here? I believe that, Mr. Speaker, the president carefully chose me because of my energy, my commitment, my passion, and my history with young people. Mr. Speaker, I do a lot of mentorship across the country, even when I was in the Ministry of Roads and Transport. Mr. Speaker, I ran a tournament, support a tournament, Mr. Speaker, that runs in about 5 counties, and we were moving to the 6th county in the Kerio Valley region, which uses sports, and for that reason, it was football last year, to bring warring communities together, the Pokots, the Marakwets, the Turkana, the Samburus, Mr. Speaker, the people of Tugen, to bring them together to play together. And last year, as a result of that tournament, for the first time, we had an opportunity. Some leaders from Turkana got the first time to be in Kapenguria when we were playing football, and I was really surprised. And that way, sports, Mr. Speaker, is also one way of bringing people together. I have a passion for the young people, and I believe that that passion is going to be translated to action, Mr. Speaker, once I assume office. And that passion is to sort the problems that are bedeviling our young people. The problem of unemployment, Mr. Speaker. The problem of our sports sector, the way it's mismanaged, Mr. Speaker. And many other issues that I hope we will delve into. Because my teacher, Honorable Gladys Boshole, has asked a very wide question. If I'm left to answer, Mr. Speaker,
I want to narrow you down now
yes, I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The much you have said and said it well. Majority Leader?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Going forward now, we answer questions directly.
Honorable Speaker, allow me to start with a question on FIFA. CS nominee FKF received a letter from FIFA in March threatening suspension following a litany of court cases bedeviling the Kenyan Federation. And to date, FKF has not held their AGM, nor released an election roadmap. If you get the opportunity to serve in this ministry or don't to hear what you intend to do, I do know you're a football fan, but the teams that you support are not Kenyan teams, at least the ones I see you online supporting. What will you do to make sure that our football gets back its glory and at least Kenyans can be watching our Premier League the way they watch the English Premier League? 2, you have clearly put out your report card for the time that you are the Ministry of Roads and Infrastructure. I remember a year ago, you appeared in Parliament and promised Parliament and the people of Kenya that you would be exploring PPP as a model, an alternative model of financing huge infrastructural projects. I do know there was some work on Adani at the airport. Would want to hear whether this is the Kipchumba Murkomen who has been accused on social media of selling, in quotes, our airport. Did you or did you not sell our airport? And who did you sell to?
Take Junet as well.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I have taken note that the CS nominee, last time we vetted him here under your chairmanship, and I've seen he has just come with the same suit that he came with that time. I have the picture with me here in my phone, Mr. Speaker. I was waiting for a different one.
It's the same suit?
The same suit and the same tie. I was looking for something else.
Maybe that's his attire of luck.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing, Mr. Speaker. Maybe the people who live in the valleys of Elgeyo Marakwet told him, if you want to get approval, just take that suit and that tie. Yes. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, the question I want to ask him is that one is about this Ministry of Sports. I wanted to ask him that about protection and growth of local content. What measures will you take to protect Kenyan artists from plagiarism? Then how is the government going to assist local artists, local creatives in achieving 60% of content for local broadcast? How will you ensure that all Kenyans, including those who do not have access to TV, can consume our local content? How will you achieve that? And lastly, Waziri, from your previous office, please put it very clear to this committee. What is this matter of Adani and Jomo Kenyatta Airport? When did you travel to India? Whom did you go? What is the content of the letter? Everything. We want to know whether the Jomo Kenyatta Airport is still Kenyan Airport or it is now Mumbai International Airport. Please.
Yes, nominee.
Mr. Chair, as a matter of fact, what...
You either refer to me as chairman or speaker. I'm not a chair. I'm sitting on one.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Chairperson. Or Chairman.
Yes.
Why don't you like Chairperson, Mr. Speaker? Because you don't want to give room for agenda. Yes. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If I say this, I will offend you and other people. I am an ardent fan. Contrary to what Mr. Kimani Ichung'wah said, I am a serious fan of Gor Mahia. I used to. Does
that offend me?
Because you are a fan. I suspect you are AFC.
I'm a fan of Arsenal. No, my local team is AFC.
On a light note, I used to. On Saturdays in the St. Patrick's High School, we used to be allowed to get out of school. So we used to sneak from Iten all the way to Eldoret to watch Gor Mahia play KCC. And I was really used to be thrilled. So I've been a Gor Mahia fan for a long period of time. Besides that, in UK, I support Manchester, and in Spain, I support Real Madrid. Mr. Speaker, sports is for fun. And Mr. Speaker, I agree with Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. Those days when we used to support Gor Mahia, AFC, and all the other teams, Shabana, among others, KCC, we even used to know all the players, up to the reserve team. Now, Mr. Speaker, I don't even know our Gor Mahia players, who they are, even when they change. Why? Because the standard of football has gone down over time. It is a paradox because media, access to media has increased. Meanwhile, the accessing sports and publicity of sport and standard of sports has gone down. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I agree with Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah that the place that has to start is, Mr. Speaker, football, sports management, and for this purpose, FKF. Mr. Speaker, it is not right that for the last 8 years, you have an organization that has a leadership in office that has not been elected, but they are there in perpetuity, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's not just FKF, it's AK. AK has been there for 12 years without an election. Cricket Association, the same. Badminton, the same. Mr. Speaker, for swimming, the same. There is a problem, a serious problem, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to sports management in this country. And Mr. Speaker, what is also worse is that there is a collaboration, and unfortunately, as an officer of the court, I have to say this. There is a collaboration between these organizations and, Mr. Speaker, court orders. If you find why the AK has never held elections for 12 years, it's because they are perpetuating themselves using a court order. That is the same way the FKF is perpetuating itself along a court order. Mr. Speaker, the first thing I will do is to make sure that we bring all the stakeholders, and Mr. Speaker, I promise I'll do that within the next 1 month, all the stakeholders in different sectors of sports to make sure that we have a conversation on how to turn around these sports. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I would like, and I hope the Chief Justice is watching me, or even if she's not watching me, she will be told. I'd like to have a meeting with the Chief Justice, Mr. Speaker, should I be approved, to discuss with the Chief Justice how they will expeditiously make decisions in relation to, Mr. Speaker, elections and officials of sports associations. Mr. Speaker, the Chief Justice and our judges must understand that they are blocking young people from accessing opportunities, Mr. Speaker. The third issue, Mr. Speaker, is that I am going to request those people who have served for more than 8 years in any federation, Mr. Speaker, to recuse themselves and give an opportunity to new people who have energy and vigor to be elected, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that they take over these associations. The last thing, Mr. Speaker, I'll say on that point is
they will never recuse themselves.
I know.
Just restructure the constitution.
I'm coming to the next one.
Give them 2 terms, non-renewable. After 2 terms, 3 years, 4 years, they finish, they go.
I was coming to that, Mr. Speaker. I was coming to the next issue. The next issue, Mr. Speaker, is that we will make sure that we will not finance any sports federation that, Mr. Speaker, is not following the Sports Act and does not do regular elections. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that we must deal with is that we cannot hide. Our sports federations cannot continue to hide, saying that the resources they get from FIFA or World Athletics Organization or International Badminton Organizations are not subject to auditing. We must audit that money, Mr. Speaker, and we will involve Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, we will involve DCI if it requires, Mr. Speaker. That money is given to Kenya, not for the association themselves. It's on behalf of the young people of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, and we must take them by the horns, Mr. Speaker. And I promise you, I am not an easy person to play with. I am going to go straight to these federations. I'm going to deal with these federations. And if they accept, if they want to, Mr. Speaker, to continue operating, they must accept to work with us. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say that to return our football and to return our sports, Mr. Speaker, back, we must also make sure that football management is done well. But on the other side, we must also support the private sector. For example, Safaricom with Chapadimba, they're doing a very good job in identifying talent. We need to encourage other associations, other companies, Mr. Speaker, with tax rebates that are paid on time and transparently to make sure that we return private sector to be able to support our sports teams, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know there are many other issues on sports, but that was very specific to FIFA and the cases that are there. Mr. Speaker, as a matter of fact, Mr. Mwenda is my friend, Mwendwa, and Tuei is a person I know. I want these people to just believe in the people of Kenya and give a chance.
You are confirmed.
Yes.
You are not being confirmed to go and work with friends. You are going confirmed to go and work for the people of Kenya.
That's why I'm saying, Mr. Speaker,
yes,
they are my friends, but they need to know, Mr. Speaker, that time is up. The people of Kenya would like to have an organization that is being run in a proper manner and in an accountable manner. And they need to know one thing. Murkomen is not alone. Now I have an army behind me of young people. Mr. Speaker, they either voluntarily exit these positions and accept the changes that we need, or we greet them or occupy them, Mr. Speaker. This is
that will be unlawful.
Mr. Speaker.
And we encourage you not to go that route.
No, Mr. Speaker.
If you are confirmed.
No, not illegally. We will do it, Mr. Speaker, in a peaceful manner. Because, Mr. Speaker, we will follow Article 37 very carefully, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that this is achieved. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that on the PPP issue of the airport, PPP is a very important concept of developing our infrastructure. You know that, Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, on the road of Rironi-Mau Summit, already the previous government had committed itself on the PPP. Unfortunately, the contractor they worked with was not willing to ensure that there is no transfer of guarantee to the people of Kenya. That is the reason why we are terminating the contract. Otherwise, the road would have started if they had accepted not to transfer that burden to the people of Kenya. We are redoing that PPP because of that. Mr. Speaker, for the airport, I want to be very clear, Mr. Speaker, to the people of Kenya. I have not, and I do not have the capacity to enter into any PPP as a person, as a cabinet secretary. And I have not in any way sold the airport. Mr. Speaker, the truth of the matter is this. The president has said this publicly. The PCS has said this publicly. PPP, the people of Kenya need to be taken through the process of PPP. A PIIP proposal, which is the case of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, that is privately initiated proposal. Mr. Speaker, which is part of PPP. Mr. Speaker, is not the first one. The first PIIP, Mr. Speaker, in this country was the expressway. The expressway was through a PIIP. The government evaluated it. They found a proper contractor. Now we have expressway with a contract period of 30 years, transferable back to the people of Kenya once the road is used and maintained. Mr. Speaker, the difference between the expressway and the airport is that there was a proposal. And this is not just one proposal. People keep coming with proposals. Some are serious, some are not serious. Some you invite them to come for meetings, they don't come. When a PIIP proposal has been done, the contracting authority, in this case Kenya Airports Authority, goes through a preliminary process of establishing the viability and the verifying the existence of the company, the capacity, and so forth. Once they do the preliminary process, Mr. Speaker, as the case is in Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, that process now moves to PPP committee, PPP's directorate in the ministry, in the treasury. That process has not even reached the treasury yet. What Kenya Airports Authority was to do is to first establish the relationship with the proponent. Now, they have reached a certain threshold now that they should be able now to do public participation and stakeholder engagement, after which they will send the report to PPP's committee. The PPP directorate will move it back to the contracting authority. The contracting authority will write to the ministry. The ministry, the cabinet secretary in charge of transport, when the time comes, will write to the attorney general. The attorney general...
Cheza kama wewe na cheza sita. Ushinde hadi mara 5,000 ya beti yako teke teke. Yes, and it's that simple. Dial *675#. Cheza na 6 numbers kati ya 1 hadi 6. Weka bet amount yako kutoka shilingi 50 tu. Ushinde hadi mara 5,000 instantly. Cheza kama wewe na cheza sita. Na upate nafasi moja kati ya 4 ya kuwa mshindi. Dial *675# to play now. Over 18 only. Gaming is addictive. Play responsibly. This message has been authorized by the BCLB.
Furahia na Star Times. Enjoy our amazing channels with the best dramas and telenovelas daily. Discover your love language.
Will you marry me?
Words of affirmation.
I'm sure I like you because you're unlike everyone. You are my baby.
Quality time.
Life isn't worth living without you.
Receiving gifts.
Thank you.
Acts of service. And physical touch to build a love that lasts. Furahia na Star Times. Buy the DTH decoder for only 2,999 shillings and top up 200 shillings to enjoy unlimited entertainment on the Smart Bouquet. You can also link your decoder to the Star Times on app to enjoy unlimited entertainment on the go, anytime, anywhere. Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
As you wait for your call to be picked, here is today's inspirational quote. Life is a roller coaster, full of good days and bad experiences. We must learn to accept finite disappointments, but never lose infinite hope.
Ili kuset never lose hope kama skiza tune yako, dial star 811 star 628 hash.
Na msodakta mpenzi mtazamaji, natumai kwamba unaendelea kuwa na Jumamosi njema popote pale ulipo. Karibu sana katika taarifa zetu za K24 weekend, ambapo ilivyoada basi nakupatia saa zima la taarifa mbalimbali zikiwemo hizi za leo, ambapo ule shughuli nzima ya usaili imekuwa ikiendelea hii leo, na nitakuwa nakujuza vile wale mawaziri wateuli walivyozungumza na ahadi walizotoa iwapo watateuliwa kwa mawaziri. Lakini kando na hayo, ilivyoada kutakuwa na makala maalum na taarifa nyingine kutoka mashinani. Basi moja kwa moja na kuomba usalie nasi hadi tamati, lakini kwa sasa tunapata vidokezo.
Will be to make sure that I have a sitting with KRA to look at how we can reform that institution.
Waziri mteule wa fedha John Mbadi ahidi kufanya mabadiliko makubwa katika mamlaka ya ukusanyaji ushuru pindi atakapoidhinishwa.
We must go out there and turn around this tourism and increase numbers.
Licha malalamiko ya wadau, waziri mteule wa utalii Rebecca Miano atetea ongezeko la ada za kiingilio cha mbuga tofauti. Gavana Sakaja afurushwa na wafanyabiashara wenye hasira kufuatia mkasa wa moto sokoni Toi jijini Nairobi ulioua watu 4 na kusababisha hasara ya mamilioni ya pesa. Na wadau wa usanii na sanaa watamaushwa na serikali ya kaunti ya Nakuru kwa kuonekana kupuuza umuhimu wa jiji hilo kutuzwa tuzo ya UNESCO ya majiji bunifu. Na hujambo na karibu. Jina langu ni Busara na Aman, na Evelyn Wangoi anatupatia taarifa hizi katika meza ya lugha ya ishara. Na moja kwa moja hivi sasa nakupeleka bungeni tu kuweza kupata taswira yanayojiri hivi sasa, manake waziri mteule wa wizara ya michezo na vijana ambaye ni Kipchumba Murkomen anaendelea kusailiwa. Moja kwa moja tusikilize tu kwa ufupi.
In the terms of local content, I totally agree with Honorable Junet. We need to bring Citizen TV and Royal Media have a product that they try to support local content. Mr. Speaker, they want to go the same way with Sony Studio, Universal Studios, and so forth. We need to support more of the same of local companies that are going to take local content, air them, and Mr. Speaker, pay our artists across the country. And this 60% local content is easily achievable if we find ways of engaging them. And I think what I have had for the short period after my nomination, I have engaged the sector. Many people think that this is one sector that has never had proper public participation. The people have the ideas, the stakeholders have the ideas. It needs just a leadership that is listening, and I'm going to listen to them, and we work together towards achieving this 60% local content.
Members, one question each, and Minister nominee, you answer concisely and precisely. Yes. Naisula.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to say this because PPP might happen again where the nominee will go to. And you heard what the nominee of Treasury said this morning, that Kenyans are scared of PPPs because most of the time there's so much miscommunication about it. We hope as a committee you will do better in your communication and also look at those PPPs that they serve the interest of the country more than the investors. That is what the nominee of Treasury said. But to my question,
that is just a comment. You will not
a comment. Don't
answer to it.
Yeah. So I have a comment. Kenya is hosting the African Nations Championship 2025 next year and the AFCON in 2027. Do you have any ideas on how Kenya can deliver this to world-class standards? What will we do differently if we find you suitable to hold that office? And how do you plan to incorporate stakeholder and public feedback into your planning process? And lastly, do you know if as a country we have a gender violence and abuse policy in sports?
Nominee.
In the interest of time, I will go straight to, as guidance, Mr. Speaker, to say that yes, I am aware that we are hosting CHAN next year. We are preparing Nyayo Stadium and Kasarani for purpose of, to be ready by December for purpose of CHAN, and then in preparation for the Africa Cup of Nations in 2027. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say that to deliver this world-class, to deliver the tournament to a world-class level, Mr. Speaker, we are going to put in place a steering committee that has all the stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, I'm also inviting, and I will invite the private sector to quickly join in. We don't need to wait until late, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that they invest, Mr. Speaker, in the opportunities that come with, Mr. Speaker, the Africa Cup of Nations in 2027. Mr. Speaker, also we are working on the infrastructure. Talanta Stadium, which is going to be in Jamhuri along Gong Road, Mr. Speaker, is ongoing. I will make sure that it's delivered to the required standards. Mr. Speaker, also all the stadium where the players who are going to train, we are going also to make sure that the stadia are put to be world class. One thing that is lacking in our country as we speak, Mr. Speaker, is that we do not have standards put in place in regulation of infrastructure. The law itself, the Sports Act, says that Sports Kenya will set the standards, but the regulations must be put in place. As a cabinet secretary, I promise this committee that will be a priority for me to make sure that all the infrastructure across the country are going to be built based on world-class standards. Because, Mr. Speaker, you will find some counties are awarding contracts, some institutions at national level are awarding contracts to build a stadium, but if you realize the stadium themselves, they are not world class. We are redoing now Nyayo Stadium. Yes, we are redoing Nyayo Stadium. Something we used to think it has 30,000 capacity. The reality is that it can only accommodate 18,000 people. The same to Kasarani is going to come down to 50,000 from the 60,000 we used to think. Because when you now deal with the standards itself, the required standards, it's going to be different. Mr. Speaker,
Na mtazamaji, huyo ni Kipchumba Murkomen, waziri mteule wa Wizara ya Vijana na vile michezo, akijipigia upato hapo ili aweze kupata fursa ya kuwa waziri wa wizara hiyo. Basi mtazamaji, ni siku ya 3 ya usaili wa mawaziri wa teule na ilianza asubuhi na John Mbadi kuhojiwa na kutetea uteuzi wake mbele ya kamati ya bunge ya usaili. Mbadi amesema akiidhinishwa basi shughuli yake ya kwanza itakuwa ni kufanya mabadiliko katika mamlaka ya ukusanyaji ushuru KRA, akidai kuwa mfumo wa ukusanyaji ushuru katika tume hiyo umeharibika na unahitaji mabadiliko ya haraka, ikiwa ni pamoja na kutathmini upya uongozi wake, kama anavyoripoti mwanahabari Brian Mwai. Na anasema kwamba Mbadi, ambaye alikuwa mkosoaji wa serikali ya Kenya Kwanza na sera zake za ushuru, sasa huenda akajipata akitetea sera hizo alizozikosoa akiwa mbunge.
I, John Mbadi Ngongo, do swear that the evidence.
Jumamosi saa 2 asubuhi, waziri mteule wa fedha na mipango ameambia kamati ya usaili inayoongozwa na spika wa bunge Moses Wetangula kuwa mabadiliko katika mamlaka ya KRA atayapa kipaumbele. Mbadi amesema kuwa suluhisho la kukusanya mapato ya kufanikisha bajeti ya taifa sio kuongeza ushuru mpya, bali ni kuboresha ukusanyaji wa ushuru.
What measures will you implement to improve tax collection and expand the tax base without overburdening the taxpayers?
One of my first tasks will be to make sure that I have a sitting with KRA to look at how we can reform that institution. Because there was a time in this country, not long ago, when we were collecting 18% of our GDP as taxes. Today it is 14%. If we could just increase from 14% to 18% of GDP, you will be adding about 600 billion to our revenue base. So you will be reducing the fiscal deficit and the fiscal gaps that we have.
Kuhusu suala la deni ya taifa, alisema uwajibikaji utazingatiwa zaidi na kutakuwa na ushirikishwaji wa umma kuhusu kinachoendelea.
One of the things that I think we need to do is to make a debt register a statutory document, which should be published every year, like we publish all the other documents. Kenyans should know. It is not the government that owes money to Chinese. It is not the treasury. It is the people of Kenya, the taxpayers, who owe these people money. You cannot owe someone money without knowing how much you owe. So I want to put it that debt accountability is important.
Kuhusu mswada wa fedha wa mwaka 2024 ambao ulikataliwa, Mbadi alieleza kuwa kuna masuala mengine ambayo yalikuwa muhimu na yanaweza kupitishwa bungeni.
We don't have to have a finance bill, but I'll seek the guidance and advice from the Attorney General. But I believe the good provisions which have been lost by this bill, which are not contentious, and there are many, which can still help this country grow the economy, we can bring them as specific amendments to those acts with proper public, yes, to the Mother Act, with proper public participation.
Kwa wanakandarasi wanaodai malipo yao, John Mbadi anapendekeza kwamba kukosa kulipa madeni hayo kufanywe kuwa ni hatia ya kisheria ili kuwe na uwajibikaji.
But we should criminalize failure to pay pending bills. But above all, I will make sure that we have a system in place which locks anyone who attempts to pay a new bill and ignoring an old one. The system can lock you.
Maoni yake ya awali kuhusu serikali na ukosoaji wake wa agenda ya kiuchumi ya bottom up yamekuja kumwandama baadaye.
Me and you never believed in this bottom up economy. Now we have found ourselves here.
Honorable Junet asked me a question I didn't expect to come from him, but I expected to come. Bottom up is actually a concept of UDA, read Kenya Kwanza. But I want to tell him that if you look at the philosophy of UDA and ODM, there is no difference.
Mbadi alitetea rekodi yake na kujitambulisha kama mtu mwenye uzoefu na mwenye tajriba inayohitajika kwa kazi hiyo.
It is now the mandate of Honorable Naisula and the rest of us to determine whether John Mbadi is a skunk or not.
Mwenyekiti wa zamani wa ODM sasa anasema anataka kubadilisha utendakazi katika wizara ya fedha na kuleta mabadiliko yatakayochangia mwamko mpya katika wizara ya fedha.
The Trade Ministry.
Brian Mwai, K24, Nairobi.
Na waziri mteule wa nishati na petroli Opiyo Wandayi ameapa kuleta mageuzi katika kampuni ya Kenya Power kuhakikisha utendakazi unaofaa ili kupunguza gharama ya kawi nchini. Opiyo ambaye alikuwa kiongozi wachache bungeni amekanusha kutumia maandamano ya Gen Z kujitafutia nafasi serikalini.
There is no contradiction whatsoever in what I believed in then and what I believe in now. I simply believe that I've been called to perform a national duty. And as a patriotic Kenyan, I have responded positively to the call.
Yes.
I would endeavor, first and foremost, to separate or to reduce the overlap, okay, in the functions of KPLC and REREC, okay, and to empower REREC fully to be able to undertake the mandate of last mile connections, okay, so that KPLC can concentrate, can focus on its commercial function, business.
Actually going to oversight the same G2G arrangement because it's still on progress. Has your position shifted or will your position shift if this committee approves you?
Honorable Speaker, I am aware that it is running up to end of 2025. That gives me ample time to go and study its impact, its workings, and understand it, and for me to be able to offer appropriate guidance.
What can you tell those Kenyans that believe that you took advantage of the young Kenyan demonstrators, some of whom who died while they were demonstrating, so that you could negotiate your way into government?
The Gen Zs, or the youth, who are not raising any different issues from the issues you and I, Honorable Mbui, have raised over the years. They could have had a different style, okay? But the issues they were raising were pertinent issues, which you all agree must be dealt with, okay? And therefore, it is not proper to say that we have taken advantage of the Gen Z's clamor to get into government. First and foremost, Honorable Speaker, I never applied to join the executive, but I was pleasantly surprised and felt greatly honored.
Na mtazamaji, tukiendelea na shughuli hiyo ya usaili, basi waziri mteule wa biashara, uwekezaji na viwanda Salim Mvurya amekana madai kuwa yeye ni waziri wa mapokezi, yani desk CS, dhana inayotokana na kimya chake wakati alipokuwa akihudumu kama waziri wa migodi na uchumi samawati. Wakati huo Mvurya aliahidi kukabiliana na swala la bidhaa ghushi na pia kuimarisha viwanda na kampuni licha ya hali mbaya ya uchumi inayoshuhudiwa nchini kwa sasa.
You are Salim Mvurya Mugala, EGH.
Yes.
Mteule wa Wizara ya Biashara, Uwekezaji na Viwanda Salim Mvurya ameahidi kupanga mikakati ya kushirikiana na bunge, shirika la KEBS na idara ya usalama ili kukabiliana na bidhaa ghushi humu nchini iwapo ataidhinishwa kuwa waziri.
The Counterfeit Authority, has enough regulations, has enough legislation to deal with the counterfeit in our country. In addition to that, we will introduce a counterfeit integrated management system that is going to be introducing efficiency in identifying counterfeit and counterband goods. We'll also work with KEBS to ensure that they also participate in checking the quality of goods.
Kuhusiana na swala la kudorora kwa sekta ya viwanda humu nchini,
what I'm committing to this committee is that we will, and I will provide leadership in the ministry to pursue them. Because if we are to inspire the local manufacturing, then as government we need to have a deliberate policy to ensure that either we impose levies or we reduce levies to ensure that these manufacturing industries can survive.
Mvurya vile vile aliahidi kuzindua utumizi wa dijitali na teknolojia katika biashara na kuhamasisha vijana wengi zaidi kukumbatia mpango huo ili kuboresha biashara zao.
Harnessing digital technology, especially for young people. The plan is basically to do incubation and mentorship of ideas. So I intend to provide leadership for KIRDI to mentor and to do business incubation for young people. In addition to that, we'll be able to develop an industrialization fund, which is going to help young entrepreneurs to be able now to advance their business ideas.
Wakati huo Mvurya alikanusha madai kuwa yeye ni waziri wa mapokezi, yani desk CS, kufuatia mwenendo wake katika wizara aliyohudumu, wizara ya migodi na uchumi samawati.
Many Kenyans think or say you are a desk minister.
You only sit on your desk and run your ministry from your desk.
I want to confirm that I'm not a desk minister. I'm not a desk minister. I was in West Pokot because of the clinkerization program, the 45 billion. I was in Kithiori with Mheshimiwa here.
Mvurya alikuwa anamjibu mbunge wa Pokot Kusini David Kosing aliyedai kuwa Mvurya hakuonekana akizuru sehemu tofauti ili kufahamu yanayowakumba wa Kenya kuhusiana na uchimbaji migodi. Katika kikao hiki Mvurya alielezea kuwa thamani yake imeongezeka kwa shilingi milioni 38 na sasa na milki ya thamani ya shilingi milioni 158. Wakati aliposailiwa miaka 2 iliyopita, thamani yake ilikuwa shilingi milioni 120.
When we last vetted you, what were you worth?
120.
120.
Yeah.
So you have had a growth of 38 million.
Yes.
How did it come up?
The value of the property, some property were completed, and yeah.
Na mtazamaji, basi kufikia hapo tunachukua mapumziko mafupi, lakini tukirejea basi tunakujuza tu mengi ambayo yamejiri humu nchini hapa kwenye K24 Weekend. Usende mbali.
Sensodyne gives you long-lasting protections against sensitivity. And people come in and they're like, oh, it works. I can have ice cream and I'm not in any discomfort. I recommend Sensodyne because it works. It's brilliant.
When it's a Saturday, there's only one entertainment show in East and Central Africa. Arena 254. Join Aisha Wanjiku and Tony Mwirigi for all the artistic interviews fused with amazing entertainment conversations and sizzling hot live DJ mixes. Catch this and so much more every Saturday from 10 p.m.
Skuzi nimetizi na wakanesa manzi mkamba anishuko mirema.
Only on K24 TV.
Cheza kama wewe na cheza sita. Ushinde hadi mara 5,000 ya beti yako teke teke. Yes, and it's that simple. Dial *675#. Cheza na 6 numbers kati ya 1 hadi 6. Weka bet amount yako kutoka shilingi 50 tu. Ushinde hadi mara 5,000 instantly. Cheza kama wewe na cheza sita. Na upate nafasi moja kati ya 4 ya kuwa mshindi. Dial *675# to play now. Over 18 only. Gaming is addictive. Play responsibly. This message has been authorized by the BCLB. Wapwani mpo? Kilifi na Kwale tumewasili. Sasa unaweza burudika na Star Times DTT kila maeneo ya miji ya Kilifi na Kwale. Tumbuika na vipindi kemkem vya kusisimua katika station yetu mpya ya Rainbow TV Plus kuanzia Julai tarehe 1. Rainbow TV Plus, kina cha burudani. Wasiliana na customer care kwa nambari 0719 077 077 hivi leo. Upate taarifa zaidi pa kununua DTT Star Times decoder. Uenjoy zaidi ya channel 75 local na international. Usiwachwe nyuma. Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
Na asante sana mtazamaji kwa kuendelea kuwa nasi hapa kwenye K24 Weekend tukujuze taarifa za siku. Na hivi sasa tunasalia katika shughuli nzima ya usaili wa mawaziri wateule. Na waziri mteule wa utalii Rebecca Miano ameapa kuwa iwapo atachaguliwa kwa mara nyingine kama waziri, basi atachukua nafasi hiyo na fursa hiyo kuimarisha utendakazi wake. Hata hivyo, Miano ameitetea hatua ya kuongezwa kwa ada ya mbuga. Aidha, ameapa kuimarisha sekta ya utalii kwa kuvutia watalii wapya kutoka mabara mengine kupitia mitandao na ushirikishaji wa wanariadha. Vile vile ameapa kutathmini sera zitakazodhibiti biashara ya malazi ya Airbnb. Wanahabari Harry Chimea ana maelezo zaidi.
When you get a second chance, you must also double up your efforts, your delivery.
Iwapo atapewa fursa ya pili ya kuhudumu kama waziri, Rebecca Miano aliyeteuliwa kama waziri wa utalii ameapa kuimarisha utendakazi wake. Ikumbukwe Miano amehudumu katika wizara mbili, wizara ya uwekezaji, biashara na viwanda na wizara ya Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki kabla ya baraza la mawaziri kuvunjwa mwezi jana. Licha ya watalii wengi kudaiwa kutoka Kenya kukimbilia Serengeti, Tanzania kutokana na gharama za ada za kiingilio, Miano ameitetea hatua ya kuongezwa kwa ada hizo.
The stakeholders in that strategic discussions did recommend that there should be a review of the rates that are applicable so that there are enough finances to develop Masai Mara, to maintain it, to modernize it, and do all that appertains to make it more sustainable. I have been asked whether, if approved and I take this docket, I will look at reducing these charges. My response is, I will look at all the reports so that I'm able to make an informed decision.
Haya yanajiri wakati ada ya mbuga ya wanyama ya Masai Mara imeongezeka kutoka shilingi 9,205 hadi shilingi 26,300. Katika mpango wake, Miano amesema ataipa kipaumbele miradi mbalimbali ikiwemo udhibiti wa biashara ya malazi ya Airbnb, uainishaji wa hoteli na fidia kwa waathiriwa wa mzozo wa binadamu na wanyama pori.
The Airbnbs, we are lagging behind. As a country, as a region, we are trying to catch up. I will ensure that we finalize the strategy, the regulations, any legislative and policy agenda that is required, so that we tidy up that space.
Na kuhusu uimarishaji wa usalama kwa watalii,
I will also propose that we take advantage of technology, the closed-circuit CCTVs for surveillance, and also working together with police. We need community policing, also information to the tourists on security briefs.
Pia ameahidi kutumia mitandao ya kijamii na kushirikisha wanariadha katika kuimarisha sekta ya utalii.
It's very special that we have our athletes who is a pride of Kenya. We can position them as our tourism brand ambassadors. We have a youth that can turn around material, that can turn around content, that can be used.
Kwa sasa, thamani ya Rebecca Miano imeongezeka kwa shilingi milioni 47.
444 million shillings. When you vetted me about 22 months ago, my net worth was 397. Mr. Chairman, I have not increased the assets, but what I have done is to revalue modestly the properties, taking into account the appreciation.
Harriet Chimea, K24.
Na mtazamaji, basi tukiondokea yaliyojiri bungeni, tuangazie taarifa nyingine, na hii hapa ni ya tanzia. Watu 4 wamepoteza maisha kufuatia mkasa wa moto katika soko la Toi hapa jijini Nairobi. Moto huo ambao chanzo chake bado hakijajulikana ulianza hapo jana usiku na kuacha wafanyabiashara wakadiria hasara kubwa. Basi gavana wa Nairobi Johnson Sakaja alifukuzwa na wamiliki wa biashara wenye hasira alipofika sokoni Toi akituhumiwa kwa kuzembea kazini. Katika taarifa kwa vyombo vya habari, Sakaja amesema serikali ya kaunti ya Nairobi ilizidiwa uwezo na matukio ya 7 ya moto yaliporipotiwa jana jioni.
Haya ndiyo mabaki ya lililokuwa soko la Toi hapa jijini Nairobi. Moto ulioripotiwa jana usiku liteketeza kila kitu kuwa jivu na pia kusababisha vifo vya watu 4. Mali sasa imegeuka taka. Wanabiashara walielekeza hasira kwa gavana wa kaunti ya Nairobi Johnson Sakaja. Wananchi walimrushia mawe gavana na kumlazimu aondoke eneo hilo haraka, na huku walinzi wake wakimginga mawe. Walilalamikia gavana kutowasaidia wakati walipohitaji usaidizi.
Tuliahidiwa hapa na gavana, akasema ya kwamba ataleta mabati, atafanya soko iboreshwe kwa njia mzuri mpaka tupate mazingira mzuri ya kufanya biashara. Hizo vitu ilikuwa ni promises after promises na haikufanyika. Ilikuwa ni fake promises. Sasa saa hii tena soko imechomeka bila kutimiza zile promises ambaye alisema ya kwamba atatimiza. Na DCI pia walikuja wakachukua evidence ya kwamba wanaenda kufanya uchunguzi ya kwamba hii soko mwenye amechoma hii soko akuja julikani ni nani. Mpaka wa leo there is no any arrest ambayo imefanyika, kila kitu haijafanyika.
Sakaja alilaumiwa zaidi kwa kuchelewa na kufika eneo hilo wakati biashara zilikuwa jivu.
Kudanganya, Sakaja tumemfukuza, sisi wenyewe ndio ambao tumemfukuza kwa sababu hii